A historic night for Italy, who have just been crowned European champions for the first time since 1968 at the expense of England with the very last penalty kick of the game. It was action-packed, emotional and drama-filled from start to finish in the English capital. It took extra time and penalties to separate the sides, the first European final to go to penalties since 1976. And in the end, 22-year-old Donnarumma saved Bukayo Saka's penalty to win their first title in over 50 years. The Azzurri win it all in front of over 60,000 fans at Wembley Stadium and the eyes of the world. They spoil the party on English soil, and football's not coming home. It's heading to Rome and the streets of Italy, where the party is no doubt just getting started. And welcome along to our HQ studios alongside me, Poppy Miller, Luis Miguel Echegaray. LME, we were expecting a nail-biter today. It certainly was that. It was a tactical chess match, but in the end, the night belonged to Italy, a game that had absolutely everything. It
did indeed, Poppy, and to be honest with you, sometimes I have to think that, are we really that surprised? I mean, Forza Azzurri, Italy entered this tournament with a point to prove after not making 2018 World Cup. They came into this tournament saying, we are not going to be beaten and we will do everything we can to make it happen. And so you have it. Donnarumma, to me, wow. A fantastic, fantastic goalkeeper, denying too many shots in that penalty shootout.
Absolutely, and just 22 years old at that. Well, it was a dream start to England, though. Less than 2 minutes on the clock, Luke Shaw got them in front. We said at the time, is there such a thing as too early to score? Because the momentum completely shifted in the second half in favour of Italy. I mean, what did you make of the different chapters that we saw in that match?
Yeah, no, a good way to start, of course. Listen, here's the thing that people need to understand about the English mentality, everybody. Sometimes when you lead too early, the problem is that what do you do for the overcourse of that game? And that's exactly what happened here. The problem with Gareth Southgate with this situation, I think, the moment they started leading, instead of trying to go for a second goal, they wanted to focus on protecting the lead. And to me, that's a very dangerous game to play. So England in the first half were more worried about the protection of that 1-0 lead as opposed to maybe getting that second. And in the second half, Roberto Mancini and Italy knew that. They said, listen, I think that we can do something here. I think instead of trying to, over-counter, let's push the game. Let's force it to England, because they're quite happy being 1-0 up. And so Italy just went for that killer and they got that goal.
Well, you mentioned Donnarumma. We know that Italy are unbeaten in 34 now. They're on fantastic form under Roberto Mancini. Who really stood out to you today for them?
Well, you talked about Bonucci and Chiellini being a combined 70 years old. I think that once again they showed their experience. Yes, we saw some, mischief, especially from Chiellini early on in that game, when they did the horse collar on Saka. But you cannot replicate experience. You just can't. No matter how much talent a team may have, at the end of the day, you need those forceful horses at the back, those coats, those players that know exactly what it's like to be in a final, to be in a key game. And those two, for me, were very, very important.
And on the other side of that, for England, we've already credited Roberto Mancini in the job that he's done. And all tournament long, it's been about Gareth Southgate and how impressive he has been with what he's done with this side. Did he get it right today for you, though? And was it just luck in the end when it goes down to penalties?
We were talking about this off camera. It's very difficult to criticize Gareth Southgate. You have to remember that this is a manager that has done so much, not just in this tournament, but for the national team. I mean, the fact that England made a final in a major tournament for the first time since 1966 is absolutely outstanding. But today, I do think he got it wrong, definitely in periods of it. I think that playing three centre backs with Kyle Walker obviously being such a good protective cover was good. But again, I say, what happened after you score that early goal? I think that maybe he should have implemented a little bit more creativity in those 90 minutes. Perhaps Jadon Sancho should have come in earlier, or Marcus Rashford or Jack Grealish. He waited way too long, especially in extra time, when everybody was tired. And I think that in the course of the game, right, I think maybe there are a few things that he could have done better. But, it's not for me to say. Gareth Southgate took this England team to the final, all the way to a penalty shootout, in the cruelest ways of winning and losing. So to me, it's very thin margins to criticize him, I think.
I mean, it came down to the very last kick. You just mentioned a couple of England players there, and the excitement of this English side is just the youth of it. But today, do you think that played a factor in front of all those fans at Wembley Stadium?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And obviously, when you think about those last three penalty takers for England, Saka, Rashford and Sancho, the youth is there. Listen, I think it's both a strength and a weakness when you have this much exuberance, this much youth, because then you have this they went in there with not a care in the world. They didn't care who they were facing. They didn't care about the history of it or the reverence of understanding what's happened in the past. They wanted to just focus on the future. But because just like as I mentioned Chiellini and Bonucci, Poppy, I think that here you needed perhaps a little bit more experience, to try and guide them, especially in a penalty shootout. I mean, this is Italy's 10th final in a major tournament, and this was England's first since 1966. All these players have never seen England in a final, and I think that means for something.
Well, we mentioned all the changes that we've seen from this England camp, not just on the pitch, but behind the scenes as well. The players seeming more relaxed. Gareth Southgate being very open with the media. I mean, what does this mean for English football moving forward? Do you think this really could be the start of a golden generation? Yeah,
listen, I really hope that England fans are listening. I don't want this to be a moment and an opportunity for criticism to grow on players like Bukayo Saka or Marcus Rashford, who do so many things, by the way, not just on the pitch, but off it. There has to be a lot of context here. There's a reason why England made it to the final, and it's because of players like that. Yes, Saka missed a penalty, but it was his perseverance and his situational play in previous matches that helped England get here in the first place. This is a bright time for England. And remember, this youth, that means that these players are sticking around for a long time. And so the World Cup is only 17 months away. So there's another opportunity for England to show what they can do. This is bright days for England. It's a sad day in terms of this final, but I think that the brighter days are ahead.
Well, you mentioned the youth that's coming through, but the veterans, they're still taking the headlines. Ronaldo with 5 goals. Patrick Schick also had 5 goals, but Ronaldo wins the Golden Boot on the tiebreaker, which is that he had an assist. I mean, he's just still performing for club and country at such a high level.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's kind of ridiculous that you need to have that assist to break it in a Golden Boot situation. But yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo did so many things, making history in European Championship, by becoming the all-time scorer. But we got to remember, Poppy, that Mr. Own Goal also got his goals as well. I mean, come on now, 11 goals. I hear PSG, 250 million, maybe Man City. No, but listen, all jokes aside, let's remember that Cristiano Ronaldo, he's probably going to continue for another 5 years. We could see a player playing into his early 40s and still delivering. It's amazing.
And just to wrap up and put a bow on what's been an fantastic competition that we've seen. I mean, football is the world's game, and we've really seen that over the last month. Unite the nation, unite the world in what's been such a tough 18 months for everyone. I mean, this tournament has just really had it all.
Yeah, I think you've just said it perfectly. I think that we have to remember when we think about this tournament, it's important to remember a few things. There's been obviously obstacles that I've come across, but from Denmark's heroism to the way that Italy have played this game, to the incredible goals, to England's exuberance, this to me has been one of the best tournaments in modern footballing history. That's how big I think of it, because also we got to remember we're coming off a pandemic where fans were just aching for action, and this tournament really, really delivered.
And the good news is that domestic campaigns are now just around the corner, but 51 games later of this competition, and Italy are the European champions for the first time in 53 years at the expense of England at Wembley Stadium. The rain won't dampen the mood, I'm sure, in England for what's been a fantastic competition for them. But as the party takes its way back to Rome, we say goodbye to you from our CBS Sports HQ studios. And just as a reminder, make sure you download the Que Golazo podcast with our brilliant Luis Miguel Echegaray and Jimmy Conrad for all the latest in the football world. And they will have all the breakdown from today's match as well on the podcast. That's Que Golazo. Download and subscribe today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.